In 1941, 3 Soviet scientists broke open an ancient tomb in Uzbekistan. Inside, carved into the stone, was a warning. Whoever disturbs my rest will unleash an invader more terrible than I. The scientists laughed. They were men of science. They did not believe in curses. 48 hours later, Germany launched the largest military invasion in human history against the Soviet Union. Over 27 million Soviet citizens would die before it ended. The tomb they opened belonged to Tamerlane, and this is his story. The year is 1336. A child is born in Kesh, a small, unremarkable village in modern-day Uzbekistan. He is not born into royalty, not born into privilege, not born with any reason to believe the world will remember his name. His father is a minor tribal leader, respected locally but completely insignificant in the larger world. The boy grows up in the shadow of the Mongol Empire, a civilization that once controlled everything from China to Eastern Europe. But by the time this boy is born, that empire is crumbling. It is a world of chaos, competing warlords, and collapsing power. For most children born in that world, chaos meant suffering. For this boy, chaos meant opportunity. His name was Timur, and the world would never be the same. As a young man, Timur was wounded in battle. An arrow struck his right leg. Another destroyed 2 fingers on his right hand. He survived, but he would walk with a permanent limp for the rest of his life. His enemies gave him a nickname, Timur Eleng, Timur the Lame. They meant it as an insult, as mockery, as a way to diminish a man they feared was becoming too powerful. He kept the name. He wore it like armor, and then he made every single person who ever used it against him regret it. Through his 20s and 30s, Timur built power the way a spider builds a web, slowly, patiently, and with a plan. He formed alliances. He broke alliances when they no longer served him. He fought battles. He won almost all of them, and he learned something that most conquerors never understood. Military victory alone does not create an empire. Fear creates an empire. By 1370, at just 34 years old, Timur had made himself the undisputed ruler of Central Asia. He was not a king by birth, not a king by inheritance, not a king by the grace of any dynasty. He was a king by will alone, and he had only just begun. What Tamerlane built next was not just an army. It was a machine, precise, terrifying, and unlike anything the medieval world had ever seen. His cavalry could cover distances that seemed impossible. His intelligence network knew the strength and position of enemies weeks before battle. He studied every opponent, he found every weakness, and he attacked exactly where they were least prepared. But his greatest weapon was not his cavalry, not his intelligence, not even his tactical genius. His greatest weapon was what he did after he won. Every city Tamerlane conquered faced the same choice: surrender immediately and face harsh but survivable consequences, resist and face complete annihilation. For cities that chose resistance, Tamerlane left a monument. Not a monument of stone, not a monument of gold, a tower built entirely of human skulls. Outside the city of Isfahan, in modern-day Iran, after a brief local uprising against his forces, Tamerlane ordered towers built, using 70,000 skulls. 70,000. These were not random acts of cruelty. This was deliberate psychological warfare on a scale the ancient world had never witnessed. Word traveled faster than his army. Cities that had never seen his face opened their gates before he arrived, because they had heard what the towers looked like. In 1398, Tamerlane turned his attention to India. The subcontinent was wealthy beyond imagination. Its cities held treasures accumulated over centuries. The Sultan of Delhi, ruler of the most powerful kingdom in India, heard Tamerlane was coming. He assembled his army. He gathered war elephants, the most feared military weapon in South Asia. He was going to stop Tamerlane at the border. He did not stop him. Tamerlane had studied the elephants. He knew their weakness. They were terrified of fire and unfamiliar noise. He loaded camels with burning wood and hay and drove them screaming directly at the elephant formation. The elephants panicked. They turned and crushed their own army. Delhi surrendered. Tamerlane destroyed it anyway. The city that was once considered one of the wealthiest on earth took over 100 years to recover. In 1402, Tamerlane did something nobody thought was possible. He defeated the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans were the rising superpower of the age. Their Sultan, Bayezid I, was called Yildirim, the Thunderbolt. He had never lost a battle. He had crushed European crusader armies. He had expanded Ottoman territory in every direction. He told his court that Tamerlane was an old, lame man who would fall before Ottoman power. At the Battle of Ankara in July 1402, Tamerlane destroyed the Ottoman army completely. Bayezid the Thunderbolt, the man who had never lost, was captured. Tamerlane kept him as a personal prisoner. Bayezid died in captivity months later. Some historians say from illness, others say from humiliation. By 1404, Tamerlane was 68 years old. His body was broken by decades of warfare. His leg wound had never fully healed. Any reasonable man would have stopped. Tamerlane was not a reasonable man. He announced his greatest campaign yet, the invasion of China. 200,000 soldiers assembled in the bitter Central Asian winter. Supply lines were established across thousands of miles. The Ming dynasty, rulers of China, were preparing for what they believed would be the end of their civilization. Then, in January 1405, Tamerlane fell ill, not from battle, not from assassination, not from any force on earth that could match him, from a fever. The man who could not be stopped by any army on earth was stopped by his own body. On February 18th, 1405, Tamerlane died in his tent during a snowstorm near the city of Otrar. He was 68 years old. Before he died, Tamerlane gave one final instruction. His tomb was to be built in Samarkand, his beloved capital city. It was to be magnificent, covered in intricate Islamic tilework, built to last forever. And inside, carved into the stone above his resting place, a warning: "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble." And on the tomb itself, a second inscription: "Whoever opens my tomb will unleash an invader more terrible than I." For 536 years, nobody opened it. June 1941, Samarkand, Soviet Uzbekistan. A team of Soviet archaeologists led by Mikhail Gerasimov received official government permission to excavate the tomb. The Soviet government under Stalin had little patience for ancient superstitions. Science would reveal the secrets of the past, not fear. Local Uzbek elders gathered outside the tomb. They begged the scientists not to proceed. They quoted the inscription. They spoke of the warning. The scientists proceeded anyway. On June 19th, 1941, the tomb of Tamerlane was opened. Inside, they found his remains. They found the inscriptions, exactly as described in historical records. Gerasimov carefully removed the skull to reconstruct Tamerlane's face. The scientists packed their equipment and left, satisfied with their discovery, proud of their work. 2 days later, on June 22nd, 1941, Operation Barbarossa began. 3 million German soldiers crossed into Soviet territory simultaneously. It was the largest military invasion in the history of human warfare. Exactly as the inscription had warned, an invader more terrible than Tamerlane himself. In November 1942, the remains of Tamerlane were returned to his tomb and reburied with full Islamic ceremony. Shortly after, the tide of the war began to turn. The German advance stalled at Stalingrad. The Soviet Union began its long road to survival. Was that a coincidence? Almost certainly. The German advance stalled because of supply lines, because of winter, because of Soviet resistance that surprised everyone, including Hitler himself, not because of an ancient curse. And yet, the tomb of Tamerlane has not been disturbed since 1942, not by archaeologists, not by treasure hunters, not by governments. Nobody has touched it. History gave us a man who conquered more land than Alexander the Great, who defeated armies that nobody else could defeat, who built towers that made entire cities surrender without fighting, who died of a fever on his way to conquer China, and who, 500 years after his death, may or may not have triggered the deadliest war in human history from inside a stone tomb. Tamerlane the Lame, the name his enemies gave him to make him small, the name history cannot forget.